Hi everyone, welcome to week 5, monitoring and evaluation. So this week we're going to be looking at how we'll develop an understanding of the importance of evaluation and monitoring of programs, projects and the ways to achieve best outcomes, and why we need to monitor our programs. What are effective ways to evaluate the program and what we're trying to achieve. How are you, Alex? Welcome. The other thing this week, has everyone got a chance to go through the videos and readings? Doesn't matter.
I'm usually a week behind. I do mine on the weekend.
Yeah, that's fine. Just it gives me, I suppose, a bit of I suppose it makes me understand how far I go into concepts. If you've read them or not. Sometimes if I go over them, I'll watch people glaze over. So if everyone hasn't done that, then it's great. Then we're going through things the first time. I'll go through a bit of a PowerPoint that's up there, so just so we can get an idea. We'll do a bit of background on what happened last week, and then we'll move forward into monitoring and evaluation. Then we'll do a little bit of the assignment, and we'll try and keep it. I'm going to try and keep it. Now, this is my plan: 45 minutes max. That's my mission. You might have seen also I've sent out another doodle poll. Let's just see. I'm trying to do two quick sessions. This will be like the major one, and then another one later on in the week, just to help everyone. How does everyone feel about? Is that an overload, or is that something that would assist you?
It's a good idea, because if people obviously can't make it to this session, it gives them another opportunity.
Yeah. And really, those 2 half-an-hour sessions would be, they could be the same issues, or they could be different issues that we talk about during the week. Nonetheless, the doodle poll that I have put up in the discussion forum, for your voting, I'll be having a look at it, and I think the extra 2 sessions are either a Friday or a Saturday, and it is really hard to try and split the week up because people have lives. Totally understand that. They want to go out and it's a weekend, but for those of us who don't have lives like myself, and I just get online and teach, I'm here. All right. Let's pull up this PowerPoint. I'll start. Oh, let me just share that screen first. Okay, PowerPoint. Has it? Everyone should have that on their screen now. So last week we talked about budgeting. Who's responsible for budgeting? I think we talked so much about budgeting and house budgets and who's good at doing a budget, and that we all got sick of budgeting. And we also talked about what might help you in developing a comprehensive budget for a program. So we looked at some of those elements, and we touched briefly on where can you source funds for your program. And so, we looked at very briefly different grants, what we can do there, where you might get them. But has anyone had a look at what grants exist out there, or where they might be able to get some funding for any programs they're putting together? No?
Lots of government grants. There's just a million sort of things that you could actually apply for by the reading. Yeah,
there is. Yeah. So, and then it's just a matter of matching that to yourself. So, I mean, between government grants, the state, federal, and then philanthropic, and then there's some really weird NGO ones. They're not really weird because it's actually giving, but where there's no stipulations on how that grant money is spent. And so it might be an NGO that's kind of, some of them don't even ask for things like smart grants. So some really want you to be a registered organisation, but some are really small pockets of money, $500,000. Tell us what you'll do with it. And, they're really good ones to apply for. And sometimes they only want photos of what good work you've done. So they're great things to source out. this week we're going to be looking at monitoring and evaluation. Also, why we need to monitor our programs, what are effective ways to evaluate the programs, and what are we trying to achieve. So hopefully, by the end of this, you'll understand the importance of both monitoring and evaluation, and ways to achieve those outcomes, best outcomes. So evaluation, good evaluation practices are very important. They measure the success of your program. They ensure you're accountable, first and foremost, to the people you work with, but also to your workplace, the funding bodies and key stakeholders. So I talked a little bit about that. So understanding, it's basically looking at how your program is faring. So we run a program, and sometimes, I mean, really, to use a very loose analogy, it's like hopping in a boat and taking off into the ocean. If you haven't set a clear course of where you're going to go, you never know where you're going to end up. And you could really be the Concordia and end up on the rocks. But we need to make sure that we have a clear destination. And so in that clear destination, we're monitoring the compass, we're monitoring, the fuel, we're monitoring the winds, maybe the oceans. But in this case, it's enough for my sailing analogy. In this case, we're looking at how that program's performing. And normally we would set those measures in place before we start, so we know how we're going to monitor it and what looks like effective outcomes. YouTube clip. I'm not sure how long this one goes for. If I'll just check it out. If it's a very short one, we'll have a look. There you go. It should pop up somewhere. Where it pops up, I do not know.
Welcome to our introduction.
Yep, here it is. It is somewhere.
Monitoring refers to the systematic review of the progress of activities and procedures.
Now, you probably can't hear that. Is that right? I'm going to turn the volume up a bit so you can. And then, that's great. Two minutes. I'm prepared to watch that one.
Evaluation, on the other hand, refers to this monitoring and evaluation. Monitoring refers to the systematic review of the progress of activities and procedures. Evaluation, on the other hand, refers to the assessment of the strengths and weaknesses of programs, policies, personnel, products, and organizations to improve their effectiveness. One observes and gathers information, while the other makes sense of it and uses it. M&E can be implementation-based, focusing primarily on inputs, activities, and outputs, or results-based, analyzing project outcomes and goals. Activities are crucial. They are the actions you take to manage and implement your programs, use your resources, and deliver your services. But the sum of these activities may or may not mean you have achieved your outcomes. M&E will help you find out when you have been successful. Establishing an effective M&E system is a many-layered process. You begin by doing a readiness assessment to determine the capacity and willingness of your organization to construct a results-based M&E system. It is imperative to have a clear set of outcomes to be monitored and evaluated, and to select key indicators for these outcomes. You start with a clear understanding of where you currently stand before you set targets and plan for improvement. A good monitoring system will track implementation and targets achieved, while evaluation will tell you overall whether you're doing the right things, doing things right, and whether there are better ways of doing it. The next step is to report your findings for the benefit of stakeholders, the organization, and the public. There are several critical components for sustaining an M&E system, such as clear roles and responsibilities, trustworthy and credible information, accountability, capacity and incentives, and findings are of value only when there is a demand for them, and they contribute to organizational progress. Thank you for your attention. For further information, please refer to our monitoring and evaluation manual at nberic.com.
Great. Thank you very much. Where were we? That one. So did that make sense to everyone? Monitoring and evaluation. See, we're hearing the same thing. I want to say the same thing. The same setup system of how to prepare and monitor your project. Some of the things that we're doing is reporting project achievements and evaluation findings. It serves many important functions. So some of those main things are learning among project staff, improve the quality of the services provided, inform stakeholders on the project benefits. So those stakeholders, they might be community members, they might be hierarchy in an organisation, they might be other people who might benefit off this, so local businesses, different cohorts of people, young, old, etc. But they might need to know what's actually going on in your project. Inform donors or policymakers and technical specialists of effective interventions and those that did not work. Develop a project model that can be replicated and scaled up, maybe. Reporting is closely related to monitoring and evaluation work. And so since data is needed to support major findings and conclusion, presented in a project report. And the frequency of monitoring and evaluation process are determined by the reporting requirements. How do we evaluate? And so we consider the needs of your target audience even before you begin your evaluation. Give your audience important details of the evaluation. Use caution in the findings and draw a conclusion. And that's really about, so you're using a lot of logic and I suppose you can steer the direction of outcome. It's a bit like research. So research can come out and mean many different things. And so when putting your findings together in your reports, have a solid evidence base, something that's quite transparent. And so you're not swaying an outcome. And then have others read or listen to your report, give you feedback before the final version. Consider the needs of your target audience. So in this one, so who are you conducting the evaluation for? Is it for a funding body? Again, is it for the community? Is it for a workplace? Because there'll be different, I suppose, there'll be different emphasis on the outcome and the tense of that report, depending on who it's for. Write down, so this is going through it, so write down who will see it, who will hear your report, keep your audience in mind, implement and communicate your evaluation. What does the individual group or organisation say it wants from you? So who might read that report? So consider the needs of your target audience even before you begin your evaluation. So many founders, stakeholders and other interested parties will tell you what they want to know. Some you'll need to ask. Others need to be told what the important findings are, and that's depending on why you're implementing your program, why you're trying to get the outcomes. Who will want to know what. If they tell you what they want, gather that information and communicate it. If you collect information that answers the audience so what question, if decision makers and those who fund your program want to know the difference your program makes, try your best to answer the questions. So really it's about some funding bodies really want to know what you've done with their money, and to great detail. And so information, how you monitor any program that you do, you must make sure that they understand in layman's terms what the outcomes achieved were, and without that intervention, what might or might not have happened. So this is talking about technical detail in your report and the merit of your evaluation. So what was your evaluation question? Why? Why was your purpose of the evaluation? Who was your source of information? Where did you gather that measure from? And who did you speak to? How did you do that? Where did you get it from? And from what time did you collect it? From what time to the 2 points in time? When did you monitor your information so that you could measure it? And so keeping in mind that your audience might be fairly critical of how you do this. It's got to be a very transparent process. So sometimes you write in an evaluation, it's the methodologies that you use. Those methodologies tell us how that whole evaluation is put together, and that's an important part. So if you ever look on Google and you look at evaluation reports, I don't know if anyone's looked at it, but you probably find a page in it that says, evaluation methodology or research methodology. And that's just to explain that transparent process of how we go about doing it, so other people can understand that you haven't just put a whole, whoever's looking at your report, you haven't put a whole heap of things together. There was actually a method to your madness in evidencing things. So this is talking about, just touching on the point we said before, make sure that you use caution in reporting findings and drawing conclusion. It's basically the powers in your hand, how you sway the entire report and what the outcomes look like. So you've really got to look at the data you collect and conclude what it's about. Do not claim that your program, achieved a specific result unless you've got really good evidence to show that. And make sure you discuss the results you've documented that are associated with your program, but not necessarily caused by it. So you've got to be really careful there. Use caution. Oh, this continues. If you use a random sample, make sure your numbers are random. It's not like you've picked bits of information that could sway things. So do not use superlatives or adjectives in general, such as very or extremely. It can sway, so everything is quite objective. Remember, if you use the word significant, it could imply that you use hypothesis testing and statistics. So we have to maybe not use words that are, creating any sensationalism. It is just a general fact-finding mission. And so that's how you report things. And so this is just talking about making sure when others read your report and they feed back to you, was it easy for them to read? Was it easy to understand? Was it, do you have any pictures or graphs, etc., to help people understand your report, which is always a good idea? What are the main points? And really, after that, other people have read it, how do we improve? That feedback is really important to how we might improve our report. Couple of things to avoid. Making sure we lead people to tell you what they think you want to hear. So don't let that occur. Make sure they're very objective in giving you feedback. Also, the information you gather from responses to a question is probably not very useful to you for an outcome. So you've really got to make sure when you put questions together in any program evaluation that it's quite objective. And we've talked about quantitative and qualitative data. So this is qualitative data, and within that we're looking for a story or an answer that is non-objective. We're not steering people in any way to come to a conclusion or an answer. We want to hear what it's about. Ask more than one question so don't ask double-barreled questions. An example of asking more than one question within a question is, describe your previous participation in local, state and national elections. Whatever the answer the respondent gives, you don't know if he or she is answering for the local, state or national elections, or local and state, or local and national. So that's giving you an example. And it's just trying to make you think about constructing a really good question and what answer it might elicit from your audience when you're doing your evaluations. Don't use vague words or jargon from the welfare sector. And so as you go along learning in the welfare sector, those words will start to creep into your vocab, and you might find Maria works in a school, and so all that educational language would start to creep into your vocab, what you're using probably on a day-to-day basis. So you wouldn't necessarily use that in your evaluation or your questions, because people go, A, what does that mean? Or, you might steer. So it has to, all your questions need to be in layman's terms so people really understand them. I am talking a little bit fast. I'm just trying to fly through some of these just to get a really good understanding. But we're not dwelling too long. So this is talking about using language, wording, or methods that are inappropriate for a group of people from whom you're collecting information. And that could be, if you're surveying people whom you know had vision problems, use larger typeface. If you want to inform or information from 5-year-olds, complicated questions. And if you want to collect information from people with limited literacy skills, think of the best way to gather accurate, useful information that respects their human dignity. Again, pick your audience when doing so. You don't need to collect more information than you actually need. So think about what you need to collect, and don't try and collect more than you need, thinking, it's going to be a really robust report. Just target your information. Make sure all the data that from all your interviews are preferably non-identifiable data. And so when you collate everything, people can't be identified as an individual. And make sure they know that. There's a bit of a tip sheet there down the bottom if you want to go and have a look at that. So within that, continuing on groups from last week, draw up an evaluation for your program. Create at least 6 useful questions to ask participants about their experience, the program have been creating. Make sure your goals and objectives are accounted for when you're asking your questions. Write it out and present it to class. So this was one of the things. I'm going to put this whole PowerPoint. This is up now, live. So this is going to be our week's activity. So if you get time, have a think about this, put it together, and then put it in the discussion forum. And I'll start it out. So I'll put it up as your program evaluation. Okay. Click back. I don't know if you need to copy that down, but it is on the class space now, the PowerPoint. And so you'll be able to shoot through to the page that it's actually on, which is page 20. I believe. Yeah, it's on page 20. Okay. So I'll just skip into the next one. So in methods, so this is thinking about methods and how we're constructing our evaluation. So what methods we're going to use. So the methodology that I explained before, are you going to use a case survey? A survey or a case study. So the difference in, if you're using a survey, you can get a lot of quantity of information. So within that, they can be mailed out, they can be electronic. You can use SurveyMonkey. Have you heard of SurveyMonkey? Anyone?
Yes.
Yeah, and that is a fantastic tool. I use it all the time. And it's a really quick way to throw together something. And having that, the great thing about SurveyMonkey is that it will collate everything for you. If you set up your parameters and questions and send it out and someone answers that from a link that you send in an email, everything's being collated in the background as they answer it. See, I mean, I did one recently with some young people. We got nearly 800 people in 2 weeks to complete it. And so they were from sporting clubs, they were from people coming into the youth centre where I work, they were from, where else were they? Oh, schools. So schools all around the local government area. And so they were quite diverse. And and I got young people from a special school in the area. Also got young people from private schools and young people from state school. We've got a really diverse, some really diverse raw data, and it was like 30 something questions. And so now we're just, pulling that apart and understanding what it means. But it will help in programs that I develop into the future from the questions that they answered. And so SurveyMonkey is a fantastic one. A case study. And so it might be that you put together in-depth examination of a particular case, a program group of participants, single individual. Case studies use multiple sources of information and methods to prove as complete a picture as possible. It's more like the story. So when you're collecting information or whatever has happened to people where you've done your program, you might use an example of a person who participated in a program that you did, and that could be a case study. Here's an example of a young person who, or a person who participated in this particular program that we ran. And then you can say, what happened to them on their journey, the change. And so that's an example of the evidence that you give. The other thing is that you might interview face-to-face a whole range of people and collect their stories and put them together with some common answers of what they think. And so you'll have quantitative and qualitative information in the one report. I always find that evaluation reports that have both qualitative and quantitative data, so statistical information and stories, really tell a nice, rich story or show a richness to whatever you've created. Just numbers alone or a story alone, both combined really tell a nice story. Other things, observation. So it might be that you, as the worker, have taken notes and you've observed things. You might do a group assessment to collect information and a bit of brainstorming in that session. You might do expert or peer reviews. And so you might have a panel who are part of developing the project and program, and you might interview them with certain questions. And from their point of view, what happened? Portfolio reviews, collection of materials, samples of work that encompass the breadth and scope of the program activity, or testimonials, just individual statements from people indicating what they thought. And where would you see testimonials from? If you're ever up late at night, have you ever noticed, when they have a late night shopping on, you always see someone, on some testimonial saying, I used this product and it was the best thing since sliced bread. It's that type of situation. So it's making sure any of those testimonials, but I wouldn't use that too much. I'd probably go back to some of the other things. Testimonials don't always really state your case and can skew with programs. Well, one or two is about it. I wouldn't do the whole thing. Other thing, tests. You might give a test to people, photographs, slides, or videos. So and as I was saying, some of the grants out there, all they want back as evidences that you've spent their money on doing the project that you've stated is providing photos of people participating in the grant and some of the outcomes. It could be diaries or journals, recording events over time, blogs, recording of chronological entries, which are usually brief and factual, a document analysis, use of content analysis, and other techniques to analyse and summarise printed material and existing information. So just looking at everything that you used and putting together a story out of all the documents that you've had. Common most methods of evaluation would be informed discussion, interviews, focus groups, documentation review, observation, a combination of everything. So, but mainly remember to respect your participants and their I can't say that at this point. Anomaly. My tongue is too tired. Even though looking at it, I cannot say it. And I'm only going to try. Drew, make sure that your clients are anonymous during this process. Thank you. It happens from time to time where I can't just say words. Where am I? So, evaluation should contain what you will give explanations of, the types of methods of evaluation you have chosen, when you will explain, when you will use these methods throughout your program. How will you explain how these methods will be useful in providing the feedback you're looking at, and why? Why you will explain why you think this is the best way to evaluate your program. So what, when, how, and why. We've all heard of those. So just thinking about those, that's what your evaluation should be targeting. So the other key things, we've got, the other things that I'm going to put up, if you get time, if you can jump into the journal later on and put in some of your thoughts on how you're tracking at the moment. But other than that, there is a bit of a, and I'll just skip down to it. There's two things I want to do here. So self-study YouTube, have a watch of the YouTube clip here. We won't watch it at the moment. I'll let you do that in your time because we'll go on for a few minutes. But just going back, I want to jump into the next assessment if I can. And have a bit of Q&A time. Where are we? Sorry, I'm just going to the next assessment. Assessment task 1. All right. All right. How's that? Can everyone see that? Yeah. So, yeah. Have you all read through what we need to do for this assessment?
Mm-hmm.
My goodness, I might just go through it. So, both Lydia and Maria are, on top of this, so that's great. Just for other people who might be watching, who might not be so clued in, and so in this particular one, it's 1,000 to 1,500 words. Within that, I'm not precious on word counts, and so as long as you use that as a general guide, 2,000 words. 200 words, 1,000, that's 500 words clearance. So if you can keep between that 500 word count, that'd be great. If you're doing bachelor, I think I've mentioned to some people that normally you keep to about 200 word difference, but this is a big swing, so don't be too precious on it. As long as you go through and in doing your assignment, you look at the marking criteria, and then when answering questions, have a look at the marking criteria and think, did I answer that? And if you have, then you're going to get a pass. Okay? So within
Mark,
oh, sorry, yeah.
I'm so sorry. Just to set this out, because Simon said my last assignment I probably should have made, rather than writing it in sort of a report narrative type thing, he would have wanted dot points.
Mm-hmm.
This particular assignment, to set it out, would you do you want to sort of have A, answer the question, B, answer the question, C? Is that how you would set this out?
I look, sometimes it's all about who's doing the assessing, and it does make it quite easier to go through when you're assessing many assignments to set out in blocks, and you can see where it really evidences. So we look down, and that's how I'd present this. So when you look down, outlines program event to be undertaken in response to identified need. So A is one program or event you implement fully will fulfill a key objective described in assessment 1. Key resources need to put this on an estimate, total cost included. So doing that, you've outlined the program and what's going to happen there. So I would go A, B, C and try and do that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Where is it? I'm missing it again. Here we go. And so you're to plan and develop an event or program response to the need identified in assessment 1. And so key resources needed to put or deliver this program, instead of, I shouldn't say to put this on, to deliver this program, and an estimate of the total cost. And so include any financial resources as well as in kind. So to remember, when we talk about financial resources, we're talking about there might be money in your particular organisation. It might be that it's it might be that you've put a grant together, or a grant submission. It might be that there's donations from the public or a business or a philanthropic organisation. But also remember what the in-kind costs are. So in-kind costs, just to recap, does it, Maria or Lydia or Julie, do any of you remember what in-kind costs refer to from our budgeting?
It's when another external organisation that like a person works is part of the program.
Yep.
And they don't give money, but they donate their time.
Yeah. So it might be that donate their time, or putting. It could be that you use a car, your workplace car for this project. You with the petrol, with everything else involved in it. That the people hours combined from your organisation or other organisations that are partners. They bring a table, they bring a picnic basket. Whatever they put into it, that's their in kind. So if you think of all those other things that aren't purely money, that's the in kind that they'll put together. And sometimes you'll be really surprised when you kind of add up all that in kind, how much it actually equates to. It can be quite a lot. And so just having partners, can put a lot of resources into any project. So number one, planning for the program event, squad 1 program event. You can implement total costs and in-kind resources. B, resources you already have within the organisation community that you can work with. Include your own skills, the skills and abilities of clients and other workers. C, key stakeholders outside the organisation who you may be able to work with, including other service, local businesses, local government. So it's just like you're finding out who those key services are around and seeing if they'll be part of this. Local government, of course, if you've got a good cause, they'll always come on board, but they might want you to write a grant application before they do that. Some of the things the approvals both internally and externally, and how you'll need to stage this event or program and any other service or organisational procedures that you will need to follow in planning or staging the program or event. So within that, it's looking at both what is bureaucratic levels that you have to go through. So when you're delivering this, you might have to abide by council laws, your workplace, how that operates and how they deliver things. Within that, you have to make sure that you've done a risk assessment, for example. It could be risk assessment, making sure that, all these other things, everything that you might need to deliver and all the paperwork you might do. So that's where that starts to come into it. Approvals internally and externally. So an evaluation plan that lists the key objectives the program or event is to achieve, and how this is measured. How are you going to collect the data in order to determine this? So there is a planning wizard, but we've looked at a planning wizard before, and really that planning wizard was a little bit confusing for a few people. So unless we were sitting here talking about it, find another way of how you summarise and collect data so you can evidence it. But remember how the planning wizard was that we used in assignment 1? Does everyone remember that one? And it was just a table. it was a bit confusing. So if you can find a simplified version, that's great. You don't have to rely on the one that we used previously. But as long as it steps out how you're going to collect data and explains how, and in a table grid, that's all we need. How you will, pardon?
Sorry, is that something that you repeat? We did that planning wizard for the first assignment. Is that something that you sort of roll over and repeat in this assignment for that answer?
Yeah, so within this, you could use the same one because you are talking about the same one, but an evaluation plan that lists the key objectives, is program objectives to achieve, how this will be measured. So the evaluation plan and then how it will be measured is that planning wizard, yeah? And there's better planning wizards are the one evidenced in this particular pack. And so now we've talked about what one is, how to look at it. It's a basic table, and it tells you, the reader, how you're collecting information and why, what method and why. How you ensure accessibility to your clients in your target group, so including identifying any barriers to participation by your target. Describe how you'll overcome these barriers to ensure this is an accessible program available to a range of people. How you'll continue to consult with clients in the service about the implementation of a program or event and support them in this ongoing involvement, and how you have undertaken a SWOT analysis for this event. So are we across what a SWOT analysis means? So what's a SWOT analysis, Lydia?
Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities,
And threats?
threats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're thinking that, we're looking at the strengths of our project. We understand where it's going to go really well, strengths. We're looking at where we need to maybe put a little bit more work into it, its weaknesses. We're looking at opportunities. So what can this do? What's going to be great about it? What are the opportunities that this will? And the threats are, threats really could be the risk management. It could be funding. It could be the safety of people. But it's thinking in that space. And then there's an appendix A, in your
Do you
assessment.
have that appendix open, Mark?
Pardon?
Do you have that appendix open?
There it is there.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
So that's down, the assessment guide. If you look down the bottom of that, you can see that. There's also, if you're ever looking for, where it refers to appendixes, these are other things. Simple budgets. That's the Baltimore Community Centre that you'll be using. But yeah, you have to find it. So appendixes are down the bottom. Yeah, there we are. How you continue to consult with clients in the service about the implementation of the program. Yeah, we've talked about that. The SWOT we've talked about. And number 2, create an action plan that details the who needs to do what and when they need to do it and how this will be communicated to those responsible. So within that, include yourself, other workers in the agency, and where relevant clients are coming from, and note any training support that clients especially may need for their role, and also how you're going to do that. So there's a lot of just thinking and putting the jigsaw puzzle pieces together. But remember when we talked about this before, this is the when, what, how, and why. You're right. That's where that kind of comes into that space, yeah, when we're talking about number 2. So refer to that just as a refresher. And so that's where that assessment sits. Then go down, have a look, and become familiar with some of the marking criteria. So what are the outcomes that you need to evidence in your report that satisfies the marking criteria? as long as we're looking at these and you know that your report has covered these angles along the way, you're going to be in the place for a pass all the way through. But as always, we've got another week to talk about this. And so I would expect that you would start the process, and then also any questions along the way in this process next week or later on this week. Once I look at the doodle poll, if anyone's available there, and it's Friday or Saturday night, depending on what the majority says in the class, I'll let everyone know on the discussion forum, but we can have a talk about that a little bit more, how everyone's tracking, and we can, as a group, just go through any issues everyone's having in their own assignments, and just to alleviate some of the anxiety. And that's what it's all about, alleviating assessment anxiety. Is that a AAA? I think it is, alleviating assessment. Yeah, it's AAA. That's where we want to be, because I know assessments, they cause a lot of anxiety. Even when you're marking them, I have to go through a whole heap, so it's on both sides here. So we have to make sure that we have everything nice, neat package, and you're really across it. So my role is to help you understand as much as I possibly can anyway. So don't be shy in asking a lot of questions.
Mark, is there an action plan template that we can go off? Is that on the for number 2?
I don't know. I don't think there was an action plan template. That one has a... But saying that, there's always one that you can find, but there's no template to do the action plan, who, what, where. So there's a little bit of creativity you can put together there.
So,
but you know what the parameters are going to be. So if you look at program action plan, and should we do a Google search together to just have a quick look at what's out there in cyberspace?
Could we just do a table with those headings? That
Yep.
when, what?
Yep.
Okay.
This was always like planning templates. Oh, you never like the ones that you have to pay for, right? Well, sometimes you just have to look for the right action plan. I should say free. That's the key word here, isn't it? I saw top 10 somewhere for a second, then it disappeared. There's a basic one that you can start to manipulate and change up with your headings. Who's doing what, when, how, why. And so it's just an example of one that you could grab. It saves you starting your own table yourself, and you'll probably be able to find far better ones as you go along. If you look
Mark, do you want it in a template, or can you actually just write it?
Look, it would be great if it was in a template-y type format, but you can, yeah, definitely. I think within creating who, what, how, it's really easy to put together, and you might be able to set that table out. I've seen some really good ones where it's in table format, and at the end you're noting any training. So I'm pointing to the screen, but you can't see that. I'll use this pointer. But at the end, note any training support the clients especially may require for their role. That can be another table at the end that you identify. And so it can all be in one table which makes it really easy to compile then, and in a bullet point form all the way through. I'd present it in that method. It's really easy to understand and really easy to create in that way.
So is it like the action plan is all the actions that need to be followed through to succeed with the program, like let's say marketing, and then you go through the 4 columns, who's going to take care of it, what is it, what and where and how? And
how they're going to do it.
Yeah. So, and then you list down all the actions that you need to do to complete the program, and
that's right.
all the steps that are going to be taken.
You think like in project management, that's what you're doing. This is your project management diagram to show how you're going to control everything. And so how you know things have been done, who's going to do what. So it's a little bit of thinking there. Now, again, don't make this bigger than Ben-Hur, because otherwise you think into things too much. I think what we want to, you just want to demonstrate some of those basic outcomes as per the marking criteria. If you start making it too complicated, you'll go on forever, because there's going to be a million actions in trying to put together any project. So, it's a KISS methodology. Keep it simple wherever you possibly can. Keeping it simple will still demonstrate the marking criteria and also demonstrate that you understand the concepts in what's required in this assessment. Okay.
I think, Lydia, or everyone, that there might have been a really good action template in it. Was it society in the Australian context in that unit? Can you remember?
Workplace communication.
Workplace communication. That one was a decent action plan template. Yeah.
Was it? I think. Well, now I know where it is. So workplace communication.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going into the online resources. When I know where there's a good resource in a subject.
I think it might have been in one of the assessment, Mark.
One of the assessment.
It might have been one of the assessments, but I don't think it was on a PowerPoint. Can you remember? I think it was actually in one of the assessments they gave us a template.
So it was workplace communication?
Yes.
Yeah, because it is very, and this is when you're developing a communication strategy, it's very similar. I think we spoke about that before. Test. Okay. I'm in that subject now, going through what's there. And was it in the assessment guide as a...
I can't remember. I've probably got it here somewhere.
I've got a workplace communication. Down the bottom of that, I have, where are we? Sorry. Was that the type of table you were referring to?
No. On in the subject and assessment guide on page 63, there's a communication management plan which has stakeholder, what information, when, how, and who is responsible.
Oh, in our current one?
No, in the workplace communication subject and assessment guide.
On page 63.
Yes.
This one goes to 60.
Oh, okay.
And his workplace communication.
Yes. It's Appendix B.
That's Appendix B there. Workplace communication plan.
Yeah, the one I've got's different.
It's been changed out. So there is one there. This has also got, what else? Because some of the other subjects are, you know, equally just as good as effective communication and have things within them. Flowcharts, SWOT analysis, yep. Best analysis. Yeah, it's not in, if that's not the one, then yeah, you might just have to look online for another really good one to help you. And I don't think, yeah, I'd have to go through each one and find if there's a table there. You're probably better off to go through to YouTube and you'll find it really quickly. Or pick out one that you really like. That's part of the journey. That's it for this week, my friends. How's that? Any more questions on? Has that at least taken you a little bit further into the assignment that you're about to undertake? What you don't know, please communicate. And also remember that that discussion forum, that's a place where everyone can ask questions of each other. Hi, how are you? What do you know about A, B, C? Have you got a great template yet? You know, hi, Lydia. Did you find a Groovy template yet? I'm still looking for one. Then Alex might go, I found a great one. Here it is. Here's a link to it. I'm not sharing. So find yourself. You know, but in that, you know, that's definitely what that space is for, to just help each other along and communicate with each other as a group. So, yeah. Might see you this Friday or this Saturday. Okay? Take care.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Cheers.